On the Insider today, telling the untold, we have PS Local Government and Rural Development for Technical Services and Nicholas Phiri. Welcome to the show. You have a background of a public servant with economics and development background. Can you tell us how your journey has been and how it prepared you for your role in the local government?
Thank you very much. First of all, I'm grateful for hosting me on your beautiful podcast. Just to indicate that indeed my academic background is development studies and also peace building, governance, and human rights. So that's my specialization actually. And yes, I started my journey to serve citizens from the private sector, working in civil society. I worked for the Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, the EFZ. I worked with the United Church of Zambia, the Synod Office. I worked with Caritas Zambia. I worked with the Zambia Civic Education Association, and then later in 2015, working together with the other civil society organizations, we established a human rights outfit, which we are calling Zitukule Consortium. And basically the Zitukule Consortium was premised on the understanding that everything else that you do, be it food security, be it decent housing, be it clean and safe drinking water, anything you can think about, it just boils down to one point, that it's a human right. And so the foundation of the Executive Consortium was to encourage government to allocate resources, development opportunities, and promulgate policies and laws that were human-centric, putting a human being on the center. And we did quite a bit of work around, the human rights persuasion with the Executive Consortium. And then in 2021, of course, there was a change of government, and then I was privileged to be appointed into this position, first of all as a Permanent Secretary of Special Duties under Cabinet Office, and then later in 2022, I transitioned to the Ministry of Local Government, where we have continued with serving the public. I must say that throughout my professional career, my personal commitment and dedication, and also source of pride and satisfaction, is to touch a life, to change a life. And I think the president put me in a very strategic ministry, because this ministry is about changing someone's life, and we'll get a little bit more into detail about that. But I'm happy to be here and to contribute to government from my wealth of experience coming from the civil society and now in government.
Okay, could you tell us what your main responsibilities are from a day-to-day basis as PS Technical Services?
So PS Technical Services, as people put it, I like to call it operations, because technical services sounds fancy or sexy if you like, but this really doesn't convey to an ordinary sense, an ordinary mind doesn't really convey what we do here. So I'm in charge of operations. The ministry is divided into two portfolios. There's a portfolio called PS Administration. So the PS Administration deals with human resource, financial management, audits, and of course planning and ICT. Operations deals with everything you expect local authorities to do for you. So we are talking about construction, maintenance of roads, urban roads. You are talking about maintenance of township roads, drainages, fire services and rescue services. You are talking about solid waste management. You are talking about the CDF. You are talking about devolution, decentralization through devolution, meaning that some of the functions and decisions that were initially made by central government in Lusaka are taken to the wards and the zones around the 156 constituencies. You are basically talking about fiscal planning. Where should what building be, and where should a farming block be? What is Lusaka going to look like 20, 30 years from now? All those issues are what I do with on day-to-day basis. And basically, I'm the chief advisor to the minister on policy implementation and police compliance in as far as local government administration is concerned. So my day-to-day life looks around that. And then the president has also added 2 more portfolios to this ministry. The first portfolio, which was created in 2021 after the formation of government, is the one known as rural development. And so here, my day-to-day job looks at what are the initiatives that we can do to bridge the gap between the so-called urban areas and the rural areas. You are aware that in this country, you still have places where people, your citizens, have to share water with the animals, and the women have to walk long distances to fetch water, to access education. You still have a situation where women give birth outside health facilities in rural areas. You still have a situation where some road network in the rural areas are absolutely inaccessible. And so the president deliberately created the portfolio of rural development to put emphasis on bringing equality and equitability around this development distribution. So that's also one of the areas I look at. But the last one is the portfolio for chiefs and traditional affairs. You will recall that up until 2021, there used to be a ministry called the Ministry of Chiefs and Traditional Affairs. That ministry was dissolved in 2021, collapsed, and brought under my ministry as a department. And so I look after the welfare of traditional leaders, the customary governance, and issues associated with traditional leadership.
Wonderful. It's, I think the one thing that you have mentioned there is the CDF, which has been the highlight of the last 4 years, especially since 2021 came in. From 2021 to 2023, we saw a dramatic increment in CDF budget from 1.8 million kwacha to a record-breaking 28.3 million kwacha, which we understand has been groundbreaking, especially when it comes down to rural development. There has been a lot of chatter around it, and I'm sure we're going to jump into the nitty-gritty of what exactly it has been doing for the country at large. Maybe what we can start with is highlighting some of the major accomplishments that the ministry has actually done from the increment of the CDF budget.
I think let me start by giving you a rhetoric statement that one of the legacy achievements of the president through this ministry has been to transform the CDF itself, the Constituency Development Fund, from being a political tool to being a tool to foster, in real sense, socio-economic development across the country. It is easy to forget that just about 3-4 years ago, even when the CDF was just about 1.6 million, the disbursement of that fund to the constituencies was, first of all, erratic. Secondly, selective. As of 2021, in August, when we formed government, we still had in excess of 90 constituencies that had not received the 1.6 allocation of the Constituency Development Fund for the past 2-3 years at a time. And this is why even the word CDF had not gained prominence and its right place until the aftermath of the 2021. So if there's one achievement I could say before I dive into the concrete outcomes, it is to transform the CDF from being a political tool to being a real tool to bring about tangible transformation of communities across the country.
I have a follow-up on that. Actuality. Do you believe in full force that the CDF is currently not being used as a tool for political gain, as you have just attested to?
Absolutely so. I believe vehemently that the CDF, first of all, I believe absolutely that this president has made a clear distinction between politicking and delivering development. Let me tell you how the CDF works. When we started the CDF in 2020, the enhanced CDF in 2021, we would send equal allocation of amounts of money to all the 156 constituencies by click of a button on the computer. All the constituencies would receive the same amount of money, the same day, at the same time, in real time. Now, if that is not development, if that is politicking, then I would say I would rather politic than run with development that is selective, than run with development that leaves other constituencies for 3 years without receiving the CDF. I would go for politicking in that case other than development. But if this is what development is, then this president stands for development. We only changed the system when we had so much unspent funds in the local authorities, and we realized that the capacities of local authorities is different. And so it was not making project management sense to give people equal amounts when they had different capacities. That is the only time we changed. But the principle is that even as I'm speaking to you now, today, there's not a single local authority in this country that would say they don't have a CDF project to boast about. Let me just give you the numbers. As of 2021 August, when we just came into office, we had more than 1.4 million students that were sitting on the floor because there were no desks. And the president stood up and made a pronouncement that we do not want to see any child sit on the floor. I personally sat on the floor in Casamanda Primary School where I did my education. I sat on the floor. I only sat on a desk in grade 6 and 7. As we speak today, we have delivered 674,000 desks. 674,000 desks delivered to schools, translating into more than 1.2 million of our students sitting on the floor. Today, if there's any school in this country where pupils are sitting on the floor, it's not because of vision failure. It is because of other systemic issues. Maybe the DEBs did not submit the correct statistics. Maybe the council did not factor in one or two things. But from the strategic point of view, from the leadership point of view, we have ensured that no Zambian child sits on the floor to pursue their education.
I love that we've highlighted the factor of education, where we definitely sought out a lag in supply, and the government and yourselves have come to fix that lag. Aside from education, obviously we have health as well, and there was a scandal which we shouldn't treat lightly.
Precisely.
One that shook the nation at large, and I think till today we're still looking for answers. You've been attesting to figures, the 674,000 desks that have been supplied to rural areas. But there is a figure that we need to speak about as well, the 156 ambulances that, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, which we're hoping today will be shed light on, that were undelivered. And we have figures of possibly 11 done or 47 done. We had a variation of news sites, we had a variation of bloggers and journalists chiming in and discussing, and the nation at large was ready for an answer, which unfortunately, due to certain politicking, was refuted. Maybe you can try and give us a bit of highlight on that delayment.
Yeah. So, one day the story of ambulances will be told to the fullest and to the appreciation of Zambians. But maybe for now, suffice to say that we do not have 11 ambulances. As a matter of fact, we have right now 79 ambulances in our custody. And I prefer not to talk about this issue in detail until when that right time comes, because what Zambians want now is not our explanation. What Zambians want is to have their ambulances delivered, which we are going to deliver. Until that day when we deliver the ambulances, then we shall tell you the correct version of this story, and then you are going to realize and appreciate that we mean well for the public.
But you
We
pledged
mean
to resign.
save the public.
P.S. You pledged to resign if the ambulances were not delivered by May 2025. What caused the reversal?
So we shall talk about everything with ambulances, everything with resignation, when we deliver your ambulances. But your ambulances will be delivered.
We'll hold you to that, PS.
Precisely.
We will not forget this conversation. And just like us sitting here, the people of Zambia want to know. The people of Zambia are itching for that answer. And if anything,
Precisely.
we are happy that at least we've gotten a bit of clarity on the accurate figure of the ambulances on the ground.
Precisely. Look, there is absolutely no reason why any government official, including myself, should remain in office if we are not delivering. Because why are we here? What are we doing? We are here to attend to citizens. And this is why people put trust in us. Once you lose that trust, you have no legitimacy, no more right to remain there. And I think that is the cardinal point. But there's always more to the story than the smoke you see. So at the right time, please let's have a conversation around the ambulances, because people deserve to know the truth.
Maybe before we just even move from this subject, just to give us a bit of comfort, you had mentioned in your earlier statement about how His Excellency is moving forward with a vision, and the vision is executed by the local authorities like yourself and the ones who work below you. It is a united front that is working in cycle to have one goal, which is obviously for all of us to have, sustenance, the socio-economic development that you spoke about. Would it be safe to say that potentially certain local authorities that you might have playing within this field might have possibly underperformed when it came to this said scandal, or maybe even participated in the failure of the delivery that has been so spoken about so widely?
I like your passion about the ambulances, but
it's not a
but that's the
passion.
power of social media. That's the
Yes,
power of
of
social media,
course.
right? Because social media creates a scandal where there's no scandal. And unfortunately, we kind of are losing our appetite to investigate the truth. But shall we discuss the ambulance issues at the right time? Because it's a whole lot 1 hour just to give you the context to appreciate where this thing is coming from and where we are at. But I think the takeaway message is that the ambulances will be delivered. Let me just put a small rider to that.
Mm-hmm.
That as much as we are interested in talking about the delayment, the delivery of ambulances, shall we also talk about the quality and the pricing. And I've always challenged people that give me one instance in the history of this nation when you went to buy the ambulances of that nature at $89,000. Just give me one. I challenge any one of you to go and give me that here in the history of the country, we bought these ambulances at $89,000, $90,000, and we deliver them. Give me one. And we forget that we are buying the same ambulances for $244,000. So it's easier to focus on an agenda that has been set. And of course, I'm culpable because I said I will resign when this does not happen.
Yes.
But yes, there's that one aspect, but what about the other aspect? Are you going to throw the water and the baby together? So there's much to the ambulance story than meet the eye, and we must, as media, we must also help to create context. You may recall that this issue started in Parliament. And when it started, it was reported that it was raised by the Auditor General. I challenge any one of the media houses, including yourselves, to go and produce that Auditor General report that said that ambulances have not been delivered or delayed to be delivered. So there's much more to this story than what has been met the eye. But of course, people are holding us to account for the words that we said. And it is not to say that we run away from our words, because once words have been spoken, you cannot reverse them. The point is, we must look at this story in its totality, and then we can judge each other fairly.
There were a lot of negative remarks around this. However, what accountability routes have you enforced in the ministry since you became PS?
I don't understand the question.
What accountability measures have you put in place since you became PS?
To avoid instances.
To avoid instances like this, like the ambulance story.
Shall we pass that question?
Well noted. We're not dwelling on the ambulance issue anymore, but we do want to understand, even when it comes down to the transparency of it. In any case, moving away, I'm sure there's other scandals internally that occur that maybe haven't been as highly publicized as that one single act. But when it comes down to the transparency of it, the engagement with the public, as you said, the media is always ready to jump on the story of the day. We're always looking for the angle, but we're here to speak to the individual, to build on it. When it comes down to the government or the Ministry of Local Government to speak to the general public, your media house, your PR, how do you go about engaging the public? How do you strategically place certain information so that we, the general public, are absorbing that information without necessarily politicking everything, which we're trying to avoid?
Well, I think, first of all, I must indicate that the communication space has undergone massive transformation because of technological developments, the coming of social media, the artificial intelligence, and several other developments that have taken the traditional way of communication. The rate at which these transformation, and innovations have taken place in the media space and the communication space has been faster than the rate at which government in general and my ministry in particular has been able to adopt and adapt. And obviously that creates some information lag. For example, sometimes a story will come out of social media, in most cases not a true story, not the one that is factual, and before it even gets to you, it's already all over the social place. We have noticed that as a gap within the ministry, and we have since initiated a number of initiatives to kind of bridge the information gap. Obviously, one of the things we have done is to remain absolutely open to the traditional media. The way we are sitting here and talking, absolutely open, even when sometimes questions are asked out of not understanding, sometimes questions are asked out of the influence of what has been heard or what the media has heard and not what is really there. Even sometimes when questions are asked with ulterior motives, we have remained absolutely open, and that's a commitment that we have as a ministry, that we remain open to the media, traditional media. That's one. Secondly, we have also gone to occupy the social media space. Obviously, the ministry and all the local authorities now have got websites. We are on Facebook. We are moving to Twitter, Instagram, and all these other spaces. But more importantly, we have also employed the public relations officer across the local authorities. That's just a first step. Now we have to build their capacity so that we can cope up with the transformation and transition that is happening in the media space. The ministry has launched the communication strategy on the CDF. We have launched the communication strategy on the Keep Zambia Clean, Green and Health. We are also working on a communication document for the Cash for Work and other programs that the ministry is anchoring. And that is all in an effort to try and streamline our communication, make it more effective, timely, so that in no time we can inform the citizens correctly. And more so because my ministry is at the center stage of driving development across the country. I think that is very important, that it is very important that we are proactive rather than reactive in the way that we communicate with the media. So for now, those are some of the measures that we have put in place. You may already have started receiving SMSs on the phone around the CDF messages. We are just in the process of introducing the USSD code to ensure that the frequent asked questions are answered automatically. You go to the code, you dial it, and then you ask, do you want to know about CDF? Do you want to report about corruption? Do you want so that kind of platform to just ensure that we cope up with ever-changing media and communication landscape.
Now, how is the decentralization agenda being implemented on the ground?
Oh, beautiful. That's a beautiful story. That's a beautiful story. And again, the decentralization through devolution is not a new phenomenon in this country. If you read the literature, you will find that right from UNIP to this government, all the successive administrations talked about decentralization. But what is decentralization? It's just power to the people. Mpamvu ku bantu. And this slogan of mpamvu ku bantu, nguzu ku bantu, amaka ku bantu, had been the tagline of most political campaigns to appease and woo voters by successive politicians. We came into government through the leadership of His Excellency the President, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, and the first thing he did around decentralization, apart from increasing the CDF, was to revisit the decentralization policy. And so we had the revised decentralization policy of 2021, in which we clearly outlined what needed to be done in order to enhance and translate decentralization into reality. After that, we followed up now with the actual devolution of central government functions. As we speak today, we have 14 functions that has been taken to the local authorities. These include, among others, veterinary services, extension services under the Ministry of Agriculture, ambulance services under the Ministry of Health, sports, community sports under the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Arts, Marines and jetties under the Ministry of Transport and Logistics, airdromes and airstrips under the Ministry of Transport and Logistics, social welfare, old people's homes, national archives under the Ministry of Home Affairs and Internal Security, among others, that we have taken to the local authorities. But the beautiful story is that we have not just taken these functions to the local authorities, we have also taken the money to implement those functions, a thing which was absolutely lacking long time ago. Hey, come on. Look, I think as a nation, there are things we should reflect on deeply and appreciate. And this is not to say that we are yearning and crying for accolades. No. We are saying that anything you don't appreciate dies. Anything you don't appreciate is not cherished. And before you know it, you will not be able to sustain it into the future. I think it's a good starting point to ensure that citizens in their respective jurisdictions and localities actively participate in decision making. But not only that, but they are also able to hold us to account. This has been a very big missing link in the past, where citizens can question, why don't we have water here? Why don't we have a community, sport facility here, and so on and so forth. So a journey of 1,000 miles started with one step. We have started with 14 steps. And I think as we go, we can then devolve as many functions as possible. And that way, you are making your development sustainable, because it's going to be owned by the people. And that is what is known as sustainable development, when people own the process and not central government. So I think on the decentralization agenda through devolution, we are doing a good job. Is it a perfect job? Maybe not. There's always room for improvement. Is it a good job? Yes, it's a good job, because for the past how many years this country had failed, absolutely failed, to move on the decentralization agenda. Let me just give you a little bit of statistic again, because I love statistics. We have done 290 teachers' houses. 290 teachers' houses from the CDF. We have done 270 nurses or health workers' houses. We have done about 560 water schemes. We have done about 770 boreholes. Actually, 1,770 boreholes. How have we done this? The people, through the World Development Committees, have said, we don't have a teacher's house, we want a house. That is the power of decentralization. That is the power of devolution. So we are not perfect yet, but I think we have started a very good job.
I love that you've highlighted the power to the people aspect of it, the power of Ubuntu, as you put it, very, very well. Just to even highlight, civil society demands more transparency. This is something that has been spoken left, right, and center throughout the times, not just in this government, but governments before that. And opposition has very much highlighted the fact that there has been poor service and delivery despite the budgets that we've spoken about. In your preamble, you did discuss the capacity aspect of it, how each council, how each of the 156 designations where the budgets are supposed to be dispensed, there was a bit of a lag in the capacity usage, as you had initially stated. What barriers do underperforming councils face when it comes down to the tasks that they're supposed to be doing, and how does the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development assist in those lags?
First of all, I think there must be an appreciation that for the longest period of time, local authorities, or what you call councils, had not been given the adequate attention and the right place in the development value chain of this country. And this is why you and I should not be oblivious and forget, either deliberately or, by default, that the most industrial disharmony, labor disharmony, was coming from local authorities in the past. It was not uncommon to find that council workers had gone for 5 months, 10 months, 1 year without getting their salaries. What does that mean? It means that there was no proper focus and emphasis on the significance of local authorities in the value chain of the country.
So why is the actuality?
And that had been going on for the longest period of time. So before you talk about capacity, before you talk about poor service delivery, before you talk about councils not performing, you must be alive to the historical context. Because the historical context affects your future prospects and your current capacity to deliver.
So do you believe the opposition is just throwing rocks from a glass house?
The people that talk about the councils the loudest were themselves at some point in this same position, and they contributed to the deterioration and undermining of local authorities to be credible delivers of development. What we have done is to begin to address those historical issues. And I really want you to understand, because, that's why I love this platform, because it gives us time to explain things in detail than an ordinary, interview, a 10-minute interview. When we formed government, the councils were sitting on more than 6 billion debt in statutory obligations, including NAPSA, ZRA, and other LASIF, and other obligations. And that was the reason why they could not even deliver. Secondly, the Local Government Act of 2019 creates what is known as the Local Government Equalization Fund. Before we formed government, this fund was structured in such a way that 80% of it was given to the councils to support their operationals and operations and functionality. And 20% was given for capital grants to service delivery. But despite the law providing for that, the remittance of that local government equalization fund to the councils was again erratic. When we came in, we started by addressing the issues of arrears in local government equalization fund. The second thing we did was to restructure the local government equalization fund from the 80-20 quantum to 100% supporting the operations of the councils, because the CDF had come in to take over the 20% capital grant. All that was to try and put the councils on their strong foot. The third thing we did was to develop what is known as the debt sustainability strategy, to promulgate a roadmap how councils were going to reduce attracting debt, but also how we are going to begin to liquidate their debt stock so that they can come back on the path of profitability, if you like, where they are fiscally sound. So all these things, we have done them in just under 3-4 years. And what you see now is that bit by bit, there is service delivery that is going to the local people. Is it at a rate we expect? No. A lot more remains to be done. For example, Lusaka is sitting in an unacceptable state of solid waste management and collected. As a matter of fact, Lusaka generates 1.2 million tons of waste per day. Out of that 1.2 million tons, only about 40% is collected, which means that the remaining 60% is what you see on the street and even clogging the streams when there's runoff water. So there's still a lot more work to be done, but at least you have not heard workers from Lusaka City Council going on the street to sort out, to demonstrate because they have not been paid. So it's a journey, and we must appreciate that we are heading somewhere, we are making progress. The opposition sometimes are not realistic, because even on the CDF, I'll tell you that some people wanted to politicize it. you have local authorities in this country where the CDF committee, the one that decides which projects should be done, could not sit and convene a meeting because an MP said you cannot sit without me. And it's on record. And then if this council fails to deliver, they come and say, oh, the council has, in fact, in most cases, they don't say the council has failed to deliver, they attack the president. So clearly you can see that the idea there is not noble. And I think it's at this point that I'd like to appeal to citizens that there is time for everything. There's time to play politics, but there's time to place public interest first. And I think the time after elections, up until the next general election, is the time to place public good first. For the CDF, for example, when we leave money in a constituency, does that money choose that you are PF, you are PND, you are what? No. Any local contractor who participates in there is able to derive a benefit. And so I would like to urge, especially the young people. I'm not a very young person, but I think I'm not a very old person either. What I've learned is that there are those of us that make noise the whole day, complain about how government is not delivering, talk about how we are going to have a regime change, talk about, and you do that for 360 days. At the end of the 360 days, you ask, what have I achieved? Nothing. Another government comes in place, you continue the same cycle until the Lord calls you. Then there are those that say, you know what, let me throw my bout in the ring and see what I can benefit. I can tell you now that from where I sit, a lot of people that make money out of government interventions and policy changes are not even making noise. Some of them are not even on Facebook. They don't even know that these things, scandals that come every day on social media, they don't even know about them. And I think this is where our young people, this is where our country should focus on. CDF, who is benefiting from CDF? If I digress just a little bit, we are going to be producing 3 million metric tons of copper. We are going to be producing 10 million tons of cereals, maize, soybeans, and wheat. If we reach that state, who is going to transport this bulk production? Are the young people already thinking of where is it going to be stored? You're talking about warehousing opportunities. Who is going to transport it? You're talking about transportation opportunities. The time we spend to say this government is not working, oh no, they are full of talking, you are losing an opportunity to place yourself in a strategic position that will benefit you. So, yes, hold us to account, but let's also have time to appreciate what is being done, and then our lives can change. And then we can criticize while we're sipping a cup of cappuccino and coffee.
Okay, now before we wrap up the show, looking to 2026, what are the top priorities and how will success be measured?
Thank you. Our top priority is, first of all, to ensure that CDF this year should hit 85% utilization rate, meaning that of all the money that we are going to be given as local government for CDF, 85% of that money should be used. The significance of that is that every coin that is spent touches a life. Every coin represents a desk. Every coin represents a maternity annex. Every coin represents a kilometer of road being done in there. So from the broader perspective, that is our focus. For specific objectives between now and 2026, this year we put aside 3.2 million per constituency to facilitate for procurement of fuel for the grading of roads. We want to ensure that we do at least a minimum of 7,000 kilometers of roads using the CDF. Last year, we did something in the region of 3,000 kilometers. This year, with this money put, we want to do at least 7,000 kilometers. So we can measure success from there. The other thing we want to do between now and 2026 is to bridge the gap in the provision of water and sanitation to our constituencies. So we have programs in place, Apart from the water schemes we're doing under CDF, we are also contemplating to procure water drilling machines that will provide water in the rural areas, but also issues of water harvesting. You saw what happened with the drought last year. Just a single season of drought and the whole country was thrown into turmoil. We want to prepare for, for those eventualities. And of course, we continue pursuing the issues of no child sitting on the floor. So what we have done now, every construction of a classroom block comes with a full set of desks, water and sanitation, reticulated by either solar or hydro, depending on the availability of the service lines in there. And obviously, lastly but not the least, is to complete the construction of chiefs' palaces. We, for the first time, again, you can go and check in the history of this country, and this is factual. The former government or governments in 2014 started the construction of chiefs' palaces. Between 2014 and 2022, they constructed 19 palaces. Of those 19 palaces, only 13 were completed in the period of 8 years. In the period 2023 to date, we are doing 120 palaces, and on average, they are around 70% completion. Before the end of this year, we should be handing over not less than 100 palaces to their Royal Highnesses. This is phase one. Phase two, we are going to do the remaining palaces, and by the end of 2026, all the 286 chiefs that you have in Zambia on the government gazette are going to have a house, an office, 2 houses for retainers, motorbikes which have already been delivered, a motorbike which we know we have already delivered, and of course, reticulated water. So those will be the priorities for the ministry, among others.
How would you grade yourself so far, 1 year to elections? How has the ministry performed? How has the UPND performed?
Well, I think that question is best left to the people. We can beat our own drum and dance to it, but what are the people saying about the rhythm?
I think
but
you can give us a heads
I think,
up. Yes,
I think looking at what we had set out to do, measuring our success against what we had set out to do, what we promised through the president, free education, enhanced CDF, we are a distinction student. What percentage, you can give it yourself, but we are a distinction student.
As a man of statistics, as he said, I was hoping for a percentage.
For a percentage,
possibly
right?
an 81%
Well,
as
we
a man of
we are
distinction.
distinction, and of course, distinction starts at 75% going up. So the up is a subject of debate, but definitely we are in the distinction category.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you for your
Thank
time,
you.
PS.
Thank you.
We'll be back soon.
Thank you. For
With
the
our
ambulances.
answers, hopefully.
Yes, for the ambulances.
Great.
This has been The Insider, telling the untold. Thank you for joining us on today's episode.